You're watching Oilers Nation Everyday with Tyler Yaremchuk. Your one-stop shop for all things Oilers.
Well, projections are in for next season. The Oilers are still projected to win their division, and the Blues are still projected to miss the playoffs. Let's get into it with the lead. Yeah, suck it, Doug Armstrong. Your team is still wildly average. Welcome in to a special 8 a.m. edition of Oilers Nation Everyday, coming to you live from the Sports Closet studio. Check them out online at sportscloset.ca. Hope you all have your coffee poured. Hope you're all ready to waste an hour of your company's time tuning into this Oilers talk show. We got some news this morning. That is the reason we are going live at 8 a.m. It's also a Tuesday. We usually don't do shows on Tuesday unless there is breaking news. And for the last couple of weeks, we have been going live because of the offer sheet drama. And that all came to a head this morning as the Edmonton Oilers officially decided not to match the offer sheets presented by the St. Louis Blues. That means Philip Broberg and Dylan Holloway are officially St. Louis Blues. Elliot Friedman was one of the first to report it. Frank was on it earlier last night, kind of saying, I don't think this is going to happen. Friedman adds one thing I believe is key here. Edmonton wants flexibility to add in season. And yes, over the last 7 days, we sat here on this show. You sat there on Twitter. You sat there in your own head going, okay, if they match both, how can they make it work? And what we had mapped out was, all right, they're going to put Kane on LTIR. They're going to start the season with a fringe roster. They're going to operate into that LTIR space, and they're going to go from there. And Kane will miss the whole year, and they'll find a way to keep everyone and be happy. And I think it really felt like they were going to match when you saw the deal for Cody Cedi, because all of a sudden it was like, okay, they've cleared up this $3.25 million in cap space, and now you have a lot of flexibility here. They could have done it. But one thing that does kind of stand in their way, and I think ultimately did stand in their way, as much as we sit here and laugh about Kucherov and Stone and the LTIR games other teams play, if there's no guarantee that Evander Kane is going to miss the season, if you think it's a 4 or 5 month recovery period, not a 6 or 7 month recovery period, you can't take that risk. And my guy Lance Kane says cap space is king. And really, that was the driver behind this. It's not like the Oilers wanted to lose Dylan Holloway and Philip Broberg for nothing more than second and third round picks, which is nothing to scoff at either. They can use those assets ahead of the deadline. But let's walk down the line of they match both. And they put Kane on LTIR, and they're starting the season in LTIR, and we're doing that whole thing, which they did for multiple years under Ken Holland when it was Mike Smith and Oscar Klefbom and all these things that were hurting their cap situation. They did that. And what did we see? First off, it more or less kills your ability to make in-season moves. And also, if Kane is set to come back, and if the doctors are saying he is healthy, and if Kane himself, which you never know what he's going to do, if he's saying himself that he is healthy, well, then where do you go from there? Because you can't trade Broberg and you can't trade Holloway, and you've already dumped off Cody Cedi, and you need to suddenly shave off close to $5 million in cap space. I know you could run fringe roster, go a little bit cheaper, whatever. Even if you want to call it $4 million, trading just Brett Kulak's not enough. You're not going to trade, Darnell Nurse in the middle of the season. So then you turn your attention to the forward group, and it's like, okay, are you now going to be jammed up into having to trade a Victor Arvidsson in the first year of his deal, get rid of an Adam Henrique in the first year of his deal? Like, you would have been really, really tough. You would have been screwed if Kane came back early. So that is one area in which this kind of makes sense. And I do think there's a few other ways to look at this in a way and go, yeah, it makes sense what Stan Bowman did. And we'll get into that in just a little bit. But first, I want to keep it going with a little bit of the news we got this morning, because shortly after the official announcement that the Oilers did not match either of these, there came an announcement that the Blues and Oilers had agreed to terms on a trade. The Blues get future considerations, which is nothing. It is short for nothing. The Blues will get nothing in this trade. The Edmonton Oilers receive Paul Fisher, a defenseman. He was a 5th-round pick a few years back. He's currently playing out with the University of Notre Dame, and he doesn't put up great numbers. He is, average sized at 6'1". He's 19 years old, though. He's unsigned, so they basically got his rights. Who knows if they ever sign him? But they also get a 3rd-round pick. And again, what's interesting here, and if you can allow me to think through the way this likely worked here, and I actually think it's really great work by the Oilers, I would imagine Edmonton decided somewhat early on, we're not going to match on Philip Broberg. And they probably decided internally that although they could match on Dylan Holloway, they did not want to match on Dylan Holloway. So what do? They call St. Louis and say, hey, we are matching Holloway unless you give us another third round pick. We're not giving them up for just 1/3. We need a second one. And I know it's not until 2028 or whatever, so it's kind of small potatoes, but still, you found a way to squeeze a little bit of extra value out of the St. Louis Blues. And I don't hate that. I don't hate that move at all. I actually think it's kind of smart. You made your decision and said, hey, how can we make this sting the least amount possible? And there you go. So the Oilers make one other move with the St. Louis Blues. We will discuss it all. We will get to your takes because I see that our YouTube chat is absolutely blowing up right now. You all have a ton of takes on this, but I also know you are all itching to hear from our boy, Liam Horrobin. So let's get out to him. He's on the Star Mechanical guest line, Edmonton's #1 plumbing and heating company. Check them out online at starmechanical.ca. Best in the game, and it's been that way for over 20 years. They would never screw you the way the St. Louis Blues screwed over the Edmonton Oilers. But Liam, as I bring you in, let me ask you this. You get a second, you get 2/3, you're out of cap hell. Did the Blues really screw over the Oilers?
I think they still screwed them because they got two players the Oilers thought were going to be young, cheap options for them this season. And by the reports of the offers that the Oilers gave Broberg and Holloway, that's clearly how they saw them too. But they managed to get something a little extra out of it, considering they have what do they have, a 6th and 7th round draft pick for next year's draft, and that first round pick, which is kind of in limbo, I guess. But I'll say yes, but maybe not as hard as it could have been.
Yeah, and I think that is that's probably fair. So according to Puckpedia, these are the draft picks that the Oilers still have. I thought they still had their own 4th round pick. They traded it for they traded Ottawa's for Podkolzin, but again, maybe Puckpedia still needs to update a little bit here. But the Oilers now going to have a 2nd, a 3rd. Remember, they can still technically trade their 1st round pick in 2025. It would just mean having to give up on the 1st round pick in 2026. One of those two needs to go to Philly, but still, you have some serious draft capital, and you also now will be back in the spot of accruing cap space during the season, which again is always where you want to be. So there's a few different reasons why this made sense. It is our Sherwood Ford giant offseason question of the day. Looking for a newer used vehicle with cutting-edge technology and top safety features? Sherwood Ford has you covered. Explore the amazing driver assistance features, intuitive infotainment systems available from their giant inventory, and their knowledgeable and friendly staff will explain everything you need to know to feel confident behind the wheel of your brand new Ford. Our Sherwood Ford giant offseason question of the day is this. It's make it make sense. Why are the Oilers better off not matching either of these two contracts? And so, and another thing too, Liam, is like, we kind of thought for a bit, like, okay, if you've traded Cody Ceci, you're bringing one of them back. Why are you subtracting another piece from your roster? But one reason I think, and this is my spin, and I actually do believe it after looking at some of the numbers and the analytics, I think the CC trade was maybe a bit more about getting Ty Emberson than we think. I think they really like the player. He's a young defenseman, and from what we heard earlier in the summer to now, I know there was that one Bruce Garriock report that said, oh, it's a 1st or 2nd round pick for the Oilers to get rid of Ceci. I think that was all smoke. I don't buy that for 1 second. There was talk earlier in the summer they could have gotten rid of Ceci if they wanted to. They didn't. Maybe it was more like San Jose looked at Ceci and was like, we need a vet. We like the 3rd round pick. And for whatever reason, they don't want Ty Emberson. But when you look at those little player cards, like Dom Lucian's a smart guy. His model nails a lot of stuff. Ty Emberson's projected value is like a $5.8 million defenseman or something like that. Like, he's a really good defensive piece. You can see here, that's really good defensive rating. This is a guy who is in the top percentiles for preventing goals, for preventing expected goals. He's a very good penalty killer. That market value of $5.8 million, like it's obviously not quite that, but like, he's a good defenseman. And there's a part of me that thinks, yes, you wanted to get rid of the CC money. You can now use that at the deadline if you want to. But I think they really like Emberson. I think they really like Podkolzin. And they're coming out of this going, hey, we got to keep our picks. We got to keep 2 young players. and we have cap flexibility, like a little check. Even if it's not Broberg and Holloway, and we love them because they were drafted here and we watched them be developed here, and it stings to watch them go for a second and a third round pick. You gave up a third and a fourth, and now you have cap flexibility, and you can still sit there and say, young former first-round pick in Podkolzin, young defenseman with half a season under his belt, and half a season of good results, not 10 good playoff games under his belt, half a season of good results from Emberson. So that's my spin of why this made sense. Have you been able to walk your way to a point where you're like, this kind of makes sense, or are you still kind of annoyed that neither of these players are Oilers anymore?
No, I think the Emberson one is probably a bit better, like you're saying, than we're maybe giving it credit for. He's got the more upside than Cody Cedi. Like you said, he's only 23 years old. This isn't just like some random guy San Jose have. Like, played in the development program, played at Wisconsin, played under Chris Knobloch. I think he was on the World Juniors team. Like, he could be a pretty good player for them. Maybe he's a top 4 right-handed defenseman for them down the road. Like, who really knows? Maybe he gets to that point in this season. I think he's an upgrade on what Vincent Desharnais would have been on the right side, if we want to look at it from that perspective too. And he's like $1.2 million cheaper. So I don't mind the idea of him. I just wonder, I do wonder how they're going to put him and Stetcher in the lineup, like who's going to go where, and like how Josh Brown kind of plays into this. They clearly feel like Brown and Stetcher can also play a significant role on this team too, if they're allowing Ceci and Broberg both to walk away. And it's a decision, to say the least. And then for Podkolzin, there was one thing I saw yesterday too, which was interesting. Jeremy Colleton is the head coach in Abbotsford, who was also the coach in Chicago when Stan Bowman was there. So maybe there's some kind of communication going on there about what this kid could be all about. But I don't think he's close to what Holloway could be. I hope he's more of a Klim Kostin when the Oilers got him, rather than when Pittsburgh got a Jesse Puljujarvi. I know there was more injuries with Puljujarvi and everything that kind of affected him, but if you can get 10 goals out of Podkolzin throughout the season, I think that's you got really good value from him. If you get 6 maybe, and he's just a solid bottom 6 player for you in the first year, then you're solid there too. But I think what the subtraction of Holloway does is just creates competition at your camp between Lavoie, Podkolzin, Jarventi, and we were talking yesterday too, like Savoy has to be on the roster for the opening day, right, for his bonuses. So maybe he just plays. Maybe they just play Savoy on opening night, and he's kind of the one who gets the first opportunity of taking that job away that's now available.
So that's, again, another interesting part of all this, with the Oilers now assumingly not going to be an LTIR. So right now with the Oilers roster, they have 13 forwards, 7 defensemen, and 2 goaltenders. And with that, Evander Kane is listed on there. He is technically on that roster. And you have 945 in cap space. So you can call up another piece there, which you will once Kane goes on IR. So with Kane on IR, you could call up a Jarventi. You could call up anyone making under $900,000 and still be cap compliant for the first day of the season. And the thing with Savoy was, if you were on LTIR, if you were operating in LTIR space, so basically if you would have matched one or both, then there was a difference in if Savoy's on your opening day roster or not. Now that you're not in LTIR, Savoy does not calculate the same. So you can start the season with Savoy in the minors and still call him up at any point, and it's not going to be an issue. That was only a problem if you were in LTIR. So again, the Oilers with a pretty full roster are now cap compliant, right? And again, there's another thing you could do where you could send down a guy like a Josh Brown and call up someone else to be your 7th defenseman if you wanted to, like a Connor Carrick, and that's $250,000 right there that you've kind of gained as well. So there are plenty of ways for the Oilers to move around their roster, and they can run the whole season with 13 healthy forwards, whether it's Kane or someone else, 7 healthy defensemen, and 2 healthy goalies, which, again, you do need the 2 healthy goalies. That is a big part in all this, Liam. But they're cap compliant now, and now you can accrue space heading into the deadline. And when you get to the trade deadline, like, you can sit there right now. It's $900,000 in cap space with everyone on board, but you send down a Corey Perry or a Derek Ryan, you send down a Josh Brown. That right there is somewhere between $1.9 to $2.1 million, in that range, $2 million, plus your $900K, plus with what we know about the way you can accrue cap space ahead of the deadline, plus the fact you have a 2nd and a 3rd round pick you can trade. You have another third in 2028 now. You can still dangle your first round pick if something's appetizing enough. Like, again, this blue line is worse than it was when the season ended. I'm not trying to spin that any other way. They're not as good as they were the last couple of seasons. And that is a little bit concerning. But what we brought up last week, Liam, when we were debating all this is like, we all just assumed that because Philip Broberg did it for 10 games, Philip Broberg could do it for 70 or 80 games. It's a risk to start the year with the blue line that the Oilers have. It was also a massive risk to bring in Philip Broberg at $4.5 million and be like, he's playing 22 minutes a night on his offside as a 23-year-old, and we trust that he's going to do it for 80 games because we saw it for 10. Like, not everyone. There are a lot of people who are upset about this decision, and I get it. I'm going to miss Dylan Holloway like crazy, and it sucks losing Philip Broberg for a second-round pick. That's not fun. You don't have anything new to show for it right now. But when it comes to the blue line and the risk they've decided to make, the alternative wasn't all that much safer.
Yeah, I mean, you're not wrong at all. I agree with what you're saying. Like, it was definitely worse, but we still didn't really know what he was going to be for that whole time. Like, something. Do you think they feel? It just feels a little steadier now, I guess you could say, in like a weird way, in the sense of everyone's just in the right position. Like, Emberson can also play in the NHL, like, and Troy Stecher can also play. They're NHL players at the end of the day, and Philip Broberg was too. But like, you were kind of throwing in him in the deep end and just hoping for the best. And I think one thing they're just going to bank on the most this season is that Darnell Nurse can kind of turn it around and have the start of the season that he had last season and just continue it through. Like, we don't need world-beating defensive play from Darnell Nurse. We just need him to be like good and consistent. And I think we started to see that more in the playoffs when we started calling him out a little bit more. And that was when Broberg was with him, ironically enough. But maybe someone like Emberson or Stecher can just help calm that down a little bit. And at Coleman Bouchard, you're going to be fine. And I think whoever plays with Kulak is ultimately going to be okay, because Kulak he's a defensive whisperer to whoever his partner is. But it's going to be that second pairing that really is the question mark. And hopefully Nurse can just, be 6 of that 9 million. That's all we need. Be 5 of it.
And I agree with that as well. Last year, there were a couple of games, if you remember, that Nurse played with Troy Stecher, they spent 48 minutes together on the ice at 5v5. The shots in that time were 26-22 for the Oilers, and the goals were 3-0 for the Oilers. So here's how my blue line is lining up next year. It's obviously Ekholm and Bush. That duo is going to play 22 to 25 minutes, probably most nights. They are going to have to work very, very hard. But then I'm going Kulak and Emberson, all shutdown pair. Again, Kulak can move things a little bit as well. It's not like you got two guys who can't pass the puck or anything like that. So I'm going Kulak and Emberson, and I'm going Nurse and Stecher. And to me, Stecher can be like, all you need is a guy who can pass the puck decently and moves a little bit. And Stecher does that. I think he can complement Darnell Nurse really, really well. And yeah, I'm going with Kulak and Emberson is honestly probably the duo that's taking the tougher assignments out of those bottom two pairings. But still, I don't care how the job gets done or who's playing however many minutes. Like, that's how I line it up next year. Josh Brown's obviously my number 7, but the more I think about this, the more I think, again, a 24-year-old Ty Emberson who's coming off the 23-year-old season that he had. I think the organization and I think the inside hockey people are way higher on this guy than we are, just because he played in San Jose and we just assumed everyone on San Jose sucked.
Yeah, I think so too. Like, I saw people saying just his numbers in comparison to basically everybody else in San Jose minus Mario Ferraro were respectable, which is crazy. I'm like, I mean, he only scored 10 points, but he did it in 30 games for a guy that's not an offensive player. That's actually pretty solid for a San Jose team whose best player was Eklund, I guess, last season, who is a good player, but he didn't have a lot else around him, did he, to do much with. So I'm kind of excited about him, and we'll see. I bet he scores more than 10 points this season. Here's a question. Who scores a goal first for their team? Emberson or Vincent Desharnais?
Oh, I thought you were going to say Cody Ceci.
Cody Ceci too.
Honestly, it's probably Emberson, because only one of those three guys gets to be on the ice with Connor McDavid. So, like, there's a chance Emberson just like sneaks in and McDavid throws one over and puts it right on his tape. Like, I don't know, man. As much as I like the young pieces in San Jose, I don't think they're teeing up Cody Ceci for a lot of success. So, people in the chat talking about the defensive prospects that we have. And remember, we had Bruce Kurlock on last week to talk about this, and someone said it's Bo Akey and that's it. And I do agree. Bo Akey, 19-year-old right shot defenseman. They got him in the second round. Scouting people like Steven Ellis that you talked to are very, very high on where the Oilers got Bo Akey. It's kind of viewed as like they got him at a great range relative to where he should have gone. But the other name, Liam, it's Max Wanner. And what I find interesting about this, again, Wanner's now 21. He's had his year in the American League under his belt. Bruce, who is right about a lot more shit than we are, Bruce comes on and says he thinks Wanner could play. He did say, right, Wanner could play games this season.
Yeah, he thinks he could sneak in a few and then become a full-time NHLer for the first time the year after.
So again, I think us on the outside versus the organization internally, and keep in mind, Stan Bowman's only been on this job for a couple of weeks, but he's surrounded by the Keith Gretzkys and the people like that. They might be sitting there and going, whoa, we see what we have in Max Wanner. He's going to be in the NHL next season, like not this coming year, but the following year. We think he's a full-time right shot D-man. So don't commit $4.5 million to Philip Broberg. We got someone coming. And if we like Emberson and we're confident in our ability with the second and third round pick to go at the deadline and add a good vet to that right side, then and we like Wanner and we know Akey's coming behind him, like the cabinets are bare in Edmonton. There's not a lot of high-end prospects sitting in the system. But when you look at who their best prospects are, Akey and Wanner are right up there, and they're both right shot defensemen. So do you want to overpay to keep a young right shot defenseman when you can sit there and go, we have two coming. One of them's 21, one of them's 19. Next year, one of these guys might be in. 2 years from now, we could be looking at both of them being ready to jump into the NHL. Do we want to overpay to keep our current right shot defenseman when, again, like, yes, Broberg way closer to being NHL ready than those two. He's done it. He showed us in the playoffs he can play heavy minutes in a pinch if you need him to. But it's a risk to pay him $4.5 million for the next 2 seasons. And it's a risk to assume that he could magically play 20 plus minutes a night or 18 plus minutes a night against tough competition for 70 to 80 games next season. Like, it just, matching was just as risky as not matching. And the Oilers actually, no, I'll say this, matching was riskier than not matching, because at least you're not going to be in cap hell now. At least you have the flexibility to assess what your problems are midway through the season, and now you have the assets and the cap space to go attack at the deadline if you want to, versus if you make the bet of keeping Broberg and Holloway and you're operating in LTIR, even if Evander Kane misses the whole year, you have set your roster for the season. There was no big trade deadline move coming because you wouldn't have had any picks and you wouldn't have had the flexibility in LTIR to make moves. So again, we would have been back to the dollar in, dollar out days, the early days of Ken Holland, where they're handcuffed and saying they can't do anything. And now they have the ability to go out and see what the trade market's like at the deadline and maybe go bring in someone who's miles better than Philip Broberg. You wouldn't have had that flexibility if you matched.
Yeah, I was thinking about the kind of cutthroatness of the Oilers in this situation too. Like, it's not easy to make the decision they made by any means, and it clearly took them literally until the last minutes to decide what they were going to truly do. But I do appreciate the idea of, like, okay, we're not going to be forced into this corner to make this decision. We're going to find alternatives and try and get that way, to get to the next side of it. And I think too, like, we talk about this blue line the way it is, and like we just mentioned, the kind of the players through, but like, look at Florida's blue line going into last season. You had Brandon Montour that was injured, Oliver Ekman-Larsson, who everyone had tossed to the side, Kulikov, Forsling, who nobody had ever heard of before, and then
he was coming off a good year. I'll give Forsling more credit. He was somewhat of a
but he was a player that people were saying, like, damn, this guy could have won the Conn Smythe if it wasn't for Connor McDavid. You know what I mean? Like, no one expected that from him. So, like, I don't know if that blue line's going to get to those heights, and it's really going to take like a collective effort. But from that perspective of things, that's what also doesn't bum me out too much about Broberg being gone. Is like what the Oilers showed last season, and also Florida, is like, you don't need an elite blue line to get you to that next level. Like, you don't need like, You know what I mean? And then guys like Aki and Wana, yeah, they're coming through. Aki's going to need another full year in Barrie after he got injured. But this Paul Fisher guy, I don't think he's just like, he's obviously a bit of a throw-in, but I think he's got a little bit of something too. I don't think his numbers were too bad at Notre Dame last season as a rookie, like second highest scoring defenseman on the team. He played for the development program. Like he's got a little bit of something to him. I know he's a 5th round pick, but college players tend to go a little bit later too. So I'm curious to see what he kind of becomes, and a guy that played in Chicago when Stan Bowman was in Chicago. So another little dot there too.
What do we got here in the YouTube chat? Blake Macbeth, 2nd and 3rd round pick will do exactly nothing for the Oilers this season. That's dumb. Like, no, they will use those picks at the deadline. If they didn't have those picks, they wouldn't be able to do anything at the deadline. So saying they'll do exactly nothing for the Oilers this season that's dumb. What else we got? Wigs, excited to see what Podkolzin, Lavoie, and Savoy could do this year. And that is the other thing too. Like, I am way more pissed about the way this Holloway thing plays out if I can't look at Matt Savoy on the Oilers roster right now. Like, again, and Podkolzin, I mean, he's a flyer. Like, there's no guarantee he really ever turns into much of anything. But again, top 10 draft pedigree, you got him for a 4th round pick. So at least they went out and took a flyer on a guy like that. I like taking that chance. He did score 14 goals at the NHL level in his rookie season, which is more than Dylan Holloway's ever scored in a season at the NHL level. So, like, Podkolzin does have some potential. Savoy has a whole bunch of potential. And again, if they didn't have Savoy sitting in the minors, I'd be sitting here saying, yeah, they're a lot more screwed. They don't have a lot of young talent coming up. And Blake, again, is saying 0 games played, Tyler, 0 points, 0 time on ice. Get him out of here. Just whatever. Like, again, think with an ounce of logic when you're making these comments. They can use the 2nd and 3rd. That'd be like saying at the beginning of the season they got Ekholm, the Schaefer guy in their 1st round pick. What are they going to do for the Oilers? And they go out and get a top pairing defenseman who plays on their team for the next 2 seasons. Like, you're going to use the 2nd and 3rd round picks. Like, 2nd and 3rd round pick, that could turn into Adam Larson at the deadline. And we're all going to be pretty thrilled when that trade comes down the pipe. Or, again, you can use it in different ways.
Yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, Adam Henrique was pretty good, but that 1st round pick did nothing for them until they traded it. Essentially, we should just get rid of the draft. I think that's what Blake's getting at here. No, if they don't play hockey, they're useless.
Well, and remember, the rule in the NHL is once the season starts, you have to keep those exact 18 players for the whole year. So, again, it's just, the Oilers are probably hooped here. They're probably a lottery team. So, lucky their 1st round pick is lottery protected.
There was a quick word from our friend Stephen Ellis on Paul Fisher, if we want to hear that. Stephen said Paul Fisher had a solid showing at the World Junior Summer Showcase for the USA. He's a stay-at-home defender that looked good this past year. Will he be an NHLer? Not sure, but a good piece of snag for a pipeline on the weaker side. So there you go.
All right. There's a little positive one from my boy Stephen Ellis.
I want to run this idea past you, Tyler, because I'm curious. I find it very interesting how much attention the Oilers have put into young players this summer. And I know that's ironic with Holloway and Broberg both leaving today, but do you make anything of that? Like, they've brought in a ton of guys and also given up on some guys, obviously, like the 3 first-round picks in Broberg, Holloway, and Borgo are all gone, but they've brought in Savoy, Javenti, this Fisher kid, Podkolzin. Like, they are still putting some attention into the future as well for guys who aren't due any kind of contract upgrade anytime soon either.
Yeah, and like, again, we're going to get to a point where at the beginning of next season, like, you want to talk about having to manage the salary cap and things like that. You know what helps when you have to pay Leon Draisaitl 13.5 to 14 million, and then you also have to pay, I mean, Evan Bouchard's probably going to be close to 10. So those 2 guys are going to be at 24 million. You know what's going to help? Savoy on his ELC and Max Wanner at 900K. Like, you know, man, again, people saying, someone said we're flip-flopping on our opinions over the last week here. The situation's fluid. And at the end of the day, like, first off, I'm not going to sit here and just like make up hot takes for the sake of having something to say and to fill airtime or whatever. We can end this stream whenever we want. There are literally no rules. We're on the internet. But we won't know if this works out or not until, quite honestly, we get to the deadline. Like, if we get to the trade deadline and the Oilers pull off an Ekholm-esque deal and it's a first and it's a third, and with their cap space, they bring in a piece and it's like, whoa, what a trade. They couldn't have done this if they kept Philip Broberg. They couldn't have done this if they kept Dylan Holloway. Then we're going to sit there at the deadline and say, yeah, Stan Bowman did really well in all of this. He accrued picks. He didn't flinch. He didn't get scared at the idea of like, oh, no, we're going to lose these two young players for just draft picks and it's a win now year. No, play the long game here. We don't know if this is the right move or the wrong move. Counterpoint, we could get to the deadline. The Oilers' blue line is painfully terrible. It's shot Stuart Skinner's confidence. We're sitting there in January with a goalie who's at .895, a blue line that can't suppress any sort of offense, and we're sitting there going, holy shit, they're screwed, and their forward group is old and slow. Like, there are risks whichever way Stan Bowman went, and like, I'm not going to sit here and pretend like I know or knew the right way to handle this situation in front of the Oilers. It was very tough. They got pinned up against a wall by Doug Armstrong. It was the definition of a predatory offer sheet. They did, I think, their best to wiggle out of this. You added a young defenseman. You added a young forward. You lost two guys who had very high draft pedigree. But here's the other thing I'll say. Where you were drafted, the number you were drafted, the round you were picked in means jack shit the second you put on the jersey. Even with Podkolzin, like, again, he got traded for a 4th-round pick. The guy went 10th overall. Where you were drafted means absolutely nothing for your potential in the NHL. So, yes, Dylan Holloway, did I love what he did in the Stanley Cup playoffs? Absolutely. Would I have loved for him to continue being an Oiler? Absolutely. But in 90 career regular season games, he has scored exactly 9 goals. I believe in him. I think he's going to be a long-time NHLer, and he's going to find a spot in the Blues top 9, and he's going to play a lot next year, and he probably hits double-digit in goals. Great. But at the same time, acting like we gave up on some like clear-cut, fit on the top line who was going to pop 25 next year, like, that's not the case here. Just because he was a first-round pick doesn't mean he's magically going to turn into something. Same way that just because Podkolzin went 10th overall a few years ago doesn't mean he's magically going to slide into the Oilers' top 9 and bang home 15 to 20 goals for you. Like, I don't know. I like the bets the Oilers made. I'm disappointed to lose out on Holloway and Broberg. And again, you can call this flip-flopping, but I'm just recognizing that we don't know if this was the right way to handle the situation right now. That we don't have a crystal ball. We don't know how this season's going to play out. And I think the Oilers did close to the best that they could given the situation. We'll see if the bets they made are good bets or not. Simple as that. Simple as that 4.5-minute rant. That easy.
That easy. I think I agree. Like, you kind of got to look at the organization health in that regard of like what's going to be best for them. And the Oilers have to pay Bouchard and Draisaitl very soon here. And those contracts have got to be played into this as well. And then also, I'm curious to see, like, from the Broberg perspective, I get it. Like, there's room on that left side for him to kind of slot in as a second on the second pair next to Justin Falk. But you look at Holloway, is he not in? I think it's
the exact same situation. It's the exact same
spot, right?
Yep.
He could replace Brandon Saad at some point this season, but I mean,
he could have replaced Nugent at some point. We could have had a third line that was Nugent Henrique because Holloway's playing good and he deserves a spot in the top 6.
But Brandon Saad, 26 goals last season. Like, he could drop off a little bit and get down to more like 18, I guess. But like, it's not like Holloway has gone to a spot where he's now immediately into the top 6. Like, they're banking on the two of them, obviously, to improve and get better and become those players that we all think they can become. But it's not the easiest situation that Holloway has got himself into here. And I do wonder if he's maybe, when he gets there, like, will he kick himself a little bit for this decision? I think Broberg made the right call, to be completely honest, but Holloway, I don't know. But there was those rumors out there that the Oilers offered Broberg 1.1 and then Holloway 1.05, which I think is actually a bit unfair to Holloway that they would offer him less than Broberg.
Or him less than Corey Perry, who's 39 years old. That's a big mistake for me. Like, you could have found a way to keep Dylan Holloway if you played your assets a little bit better. But again, you wanted to squeeze your RFAs. A bunch of teams go and do that. You left yourself vulnerable for an offer sheet and a team pounced on it. Like, Whatever. Okay, let's get into the YouTube chat, Liam. It's brought to you by our friends over at Greta Bar YEG. Arcade games, the bar, the street food. It's all good at Greta. The patio, always a vibe at Greta, whether it's a weekday or a weekend. I believe tonight is Taco Tuesday over at Greta. Hit them up downtown Edmonton. All right, let's get into a couple comments here. Mac, boys, are we watching the McDavid era unravel? That is a great poll. I'm sure about 8% of the people watching get it. Chili Yeg is in. I feel like Bowman did a fairly good job, set the team up for improvements in midseason once we know exactly what the needs will be. And I think that is a great measured way to look at it. Could we look back on this in a year and be like, well, that sucked and really knocked the Oilers down a peg? Absolutely. Could we look back on this in 6 months and be like, holy shit, they got this guy? Like, again, at this point the season, they got Ekholm. Ekholm was fresh off signing a 4-year extension with the Nashville Predators. The idea that he would have been available was insane. He wasn't even an afterthought. No one was even dreaming of Matthias Ekholm being moved from Nashville. See how the year plays out. Maybe there's a right shot defenseman on the Oilers come deadline time that our jaws are just on the floor with. D Wiggs, do you guys expect a veteran right-handed PTO? I would have said yes until they signed Emberson, but now, I mean, you can look at that Oilers blue line. Just on the right side alone, their depth chart goes Bouchard, Stetcher, Emberson, Josh Brown, and then you could even look to the minors and see a guy like Connor Carrick. You could look at Phil Kemp, who's 25 years old and got a call-up last year, although he didn't really play. You can look at Max Wanner, who's heading into his second professional season. There is enough competition there that I don't think the Oilers will go and bring in a Barry or a Schultz on a PTO. And if I'm being honest, I don't think they're the right fits. I think Troy Stetcher's a better defenseman than both of them. I'd like to see him get the minutes. So I'm not log jamming it up and bringing in a vet unless you simply want it for the preseason rules. You know, you'd have a certain amount of veterans in the lineup for every preseason game. If you're doing it for that, sure, but I don't think a Barry or a Schultz have an actual chance at cracking this roster.
Who's the fourth pairing left shot?
So it would go on the left side. You obviously have your big three, Ekholm, Nurse, and Kulak. Fourth on that left side would be Dineen, Hoffenmeyer, or Gleason.
I wonder if they bring someone in for that side. That's kind of just a position we haven't spoke about at all because the left side is so secure. Obviously, with Ekholm, Nurse, and Kulak, like maybe that's where they kind of look to bring in that veteran guy too, and have some competition between Brown and Stetcher and whoever he could be to be the seventh defenseman in the roster.
So here are the left-handed defensemen that are still on the UFA market. Well, there's a couple you got to just scratch off immediately. That would be Mark Stahl and Mark Giordano. Like those guys aren't going to go anywhere. The other names, Marco Scandella, former St. Louis Blue, last season averaged just over 11 minutes a night with the Blues. His numbers aren't that good, though. Alex Goligoski, 39 years old. No, thank you. Jared Tenorti at age 32 spent last season with the Chicago Blackhawks. Tenorti averaged just a hair under 14 minutes. Numbers not great. The only name that somewhat intrigues me, represented by Dave Gagne, by the way, would be Travis Dermott, who's 27 years old, left shot D-man, was non-qualified by the Arizona Coyotes. I haven't heard anything about him having already signed like overseas or whatever. So maybe you bring in a guy like Travis Dermott to the left side and he's a little piece of depth for you. I wouldn't hate that. But again, the free agent market's pretty thin on that side of things.
Yeah, Dermott's a good one. I would not be surprised by Tenorti too. Just penalty killing guy, big body guy who you can just kind of rotate in and out, isn't he?
Yep, that's fair. Yeah, Travis Dermott's still a free agent. So, I mean, maybe you could go with a Dermott type, but I could see them. Yeah, okay, maybe not a veteran righty. Maybe a veteran lefty makes more sense. I think you have enough competition on the right side right now, and you don't want to muddy the waters all that much, right?
Yeah, because I guess it would have been Broberg. That left defenseman would have been Broberg.
Also, I feel like people in the chat aren't giving I feel like they're not giving our boy Troy Stetcher enough respect. Like, he was hurt last year, but he can play. Like, he's a feisty little guy. He's chaotic at times, but he can play. Back in the YouTube chat. What do we got here? Chris is in over on Facebook and says, so we traded 2 first-round talents for a second and a third. This is the weakest right side D the Oilers have ever rostered. So where I'll disagree with that is, again, do you still call Broberg and Holloway first-round talents? Like that, to me, you can sit there. If you're calling Philip Broberg still a first-round talent, then we're calling Vasily Podkolzin a first-round talent. And we all know he ain't a first-round talent anymore, right? But like, just because a guy was picked there, that doesn't mean it automatically translates to trade value, right? Tyler Mulick pumping up Rasmus Anderson as a potential trade deadline ad. It would be interesting. I don't think the Flames are going to be in the mood to help out the Oilers. They probably make Edmonton overpay in any situation like that. I could see Anderson being a guy who is available. He has 2 more seasons this year and 1 more at $4.55 million. So they could definitely make the money work if they wanted to. But again, I think that one is maybe a bit of a pipe dream just because he's a Flame, and I don't get the sense that Edmonton would need to blow them out of the water, or else they would just trade him to one of the other interested teams.
Yeah, I completely agree. I do find the comment very interesting. The weakest right side the Oilers have ever rostered.
Ever?
I clicked on a random year from 2012, Tyler. Would you like to get the 3 defensemen on the right side?
Yeah, give me the 3 righties.
One of them had a good career. Tom Gilbert wasn't ideal.
He had a good career.
Corey Potter, remember him? He stepped on Taylor Hall.
Yep.
And Jeff Petrie was better.
We gave up on 2 of those guys too early, but at the time, correct, brutal.
Yes.
I like 7 already knew it. Potter probably. Yep. Yeah. Theo Peckham. Yeah, like, I mean, come on.
Yeah. Throw in your favorite right shot defenseman from the decade of darkness. That's how we'll get through today.
Nick Schultz was a lefty, right? Because they used to run Schultz and Schultz Incorporated as a pairing.
Yeah, double Schultz. How did that not get us or anything? Yeah, left shot. From Strasbourg, not Germany, Saskatchewan.
Strasbourg, not. Is there a Strasbourg in Germany?
It's France, sorry. Strasbourg is in France, not Germany.
Yeah. Chad is in. This is what we get for hiring a shit GM. I actually think, can I give you people saying I'm flip-flopping too much? I'll give you this. As much as Doug Armstrong probably doesn't do this to Kenny Holland because they're boys, I don't think Ken Holland wiggles out of this the way Stan Bowman does.
No. If Ken Holland is in charge right now, he's going to have his press conferences at 11 for Bowman. If that was Holland, he'd say, well, we've got this young kid, Philip Kemp, coming through that'll fill the void. Hopefully, Lavoie can take a step this year, or Jaden Gruby can come up from the American League. You won't have Savoy. You won't have this competition coming through. Like, give me a break. Like, Bowman's been on the job like 3 weeks and has been handed these office sheets that no other GM in the league has had to deal with this season.
Also, okay, again, I applaud Bowman as much as people might kind of laugh at getting the 3rd round pick in 2028, being like, oh, like what the hell, pity little thing from a little participation ribbon from the Blues to the Oilers. Ken Holland would have sat at his press conference and been like, I couldn't get more. What do you? The rules are the rules. I got a 2nd and a 3rd. The rules are the rules. Like, again, even trading Ceci, like, it would have been easy to just keep Cody Ceci. But no, the Oilers said they didn't go halfway. And that's maybe where I'll give Bowman some credit here, is halfway would have been, we're not matching either, and we're standing still. And we believe in the players in our system, and we're going to head into the regular season with the guys we have. They went all the way. They said, okay, if we're not matching, one of the big positives, or the biggest positive of not matching, is having cap flexibility for the deadline. So let's not just, let these 2 go and then LTIR Kane and sit somewhere in the middle awkwardly. It was like, no, let's go pedal to the floor and be as cap flexible as we can possibly be. Let's still dump Cody Ceci. Let's bring in a 24-year-old making $950K who we believe in. Let's bring in Vasily Podkolzin as well. And you know what? At least we're sitting here with 2 guys with, you can argue how much potential they have, but they have potential. And I again, the more we read about Emberson, the more I think we need to be high on Emberson. But we can sit there and say we have 2 guys with potential. We got our picks. We got our cap flexibility. Like, the Oilers, as much as they lose on this transaction because Broberg and Holloway are St. Louis Blues and you weren't able to turn them into anything directly, at least ready to contribute for next year, the 2nd and 3rd round picks, wait to see what they turn into. But this wasn't like you packaged Broberg and Holloway and got yourself a bona fide right shot D. So you can sit there and say, in all the storm of transactions, the Oilers lost the 2 best players, but they gained cap flexibility, they gained assets, and they gained 2 young pieces in the process. they did the best they could with a shitty situation. Grava is in on the YouTube. I feel like fans forget that cap space is king. Come the deadline, the Oilers will have the ability to take on a full cap it and not pay extra for other teams to come in and eat salary. Grava, you are a smart man. I don't think I've ever seen you in the YouTube chat, but you should hang out with us more. Blake is in. Tyler, why dump Ceci during the offer sheets? You'd imagine other GMs would run the price up because of it. Would it make more sense to do it after? I don't think. See, and that's part of it. I don't think they did run up the price. I think Ceci in a third for Emberson is better than market value. I think just packaging a third to Ceci is probably what the cost would have been come deadline time. So you get ahead of it in the summer. Like maybe in July, early in July, there would have been a team who just wanted Cody Ceci. But I think getting Emberson back is an interesting piece in all of this. So someone said a lot of ifs. Yes, a lot of ifs with the route the Oilers went, but you have to look at what the ifs are if they would have gone the other way. If the Oilers match and they bring in $6.9 million in cap space and Evander Kane in January says, I'm good to go, I want to play, which again, he might do and would be fully in his right to do, what do you think we have to do from there? Because you can't trade Broberg, you can't trade Holloway, so you're pigeonholed there. Trading Kulak wouldn't be enough to get rid of money, or you would have been trading Kulak on top of having Ceci gone. Like, it would have been very, very hard to maneuver the cap if you went that way. And you want to talk about a lot of ifs? What if Broberg can't play those top 4 minutes? Then guess what? You're paying him $4.5 million to play on the third pairing with Brett Kulak, and you can't trade him till the end of next August. Like, the idea that just matching them would have magically solved some sort of problems, it's not true. It's not correct.
Yeah, I agree. Do you think there's a how do I word this? There's all this stuff going around on Twitter right now how the Oilers don't have any first round picks from the last 5 years. Do you think that is, I guess, somebody's fault, or is it just the way the cards landed?
Is this the last 4 first round picks?
Yeah, somehow Borgo isn't in his first round pick. I know that was no, that was
Vampire can't photograph him.
Interesting.
Yeah, I mean, like, Ken Holland sucked at drafting, man. Like, that's no secret. They haven't. Who would have been a Ken Holland pick who's turned into an NHLer from any of the rounds? And keep in mind, he was at the helm for 5 seasons.
Broberg and Holloway. That is it. Lavoie's the next closest.
Yeah. Chris is in. I love when people come at us for comments like this, but it's like, should have matched Holloway and traded him for a second. That should have been possible. Literally impossible. If you match a player, you can't trade him for a calendar year, 1 year, 12 months, 365 days. I don't think it's a leap year. Like, come on.
Yeah. I think one thing for the draft, which is interesting, obviously you want your first round picks to pan out, and Holloway and Broberg they're going to be NHL players. Borgo, probably not. Schaefer, I guess jury's still out, but I would assume no as well. But like, when you go and look at other teams as well, it's not like everyone's thriving with all these top prospects that they've got from teams who have been competing for the Stanley Cups. I think it's just such an unfair stigma to put on these general managers. I guess Holland specifically, it's like, yes, your first round pick should pan out. Broberg and Holloway were on their way to doing that. Someone came in and offered way too much money for them, and then they don't become worth it. I don't think that's Holland's fault at all. I think it's just the way it is.
Chad is in. Oilers Nation has some real short-term memory loss problems here. Explain that take, Chad. I'd love to know. And I'd love to know your take a week ago and how correct you are. Yash is in. Tyler, there's a rumor of Boston PTOing Wheeler and Yamamoto. Do you think we might give a PTO to another forward, even with Lavoie, Savoy, and Jarventi, etc.? There's really not anyone out there on the forward market that I like all that much, if I'm being totally honest with you. So if you wanted to look, like, who are the right wingers who are out there, if you wanted to add some depth there, I'm pretty sure Jacob Silverberg retired. Kevin LeBanc is like relatively interesting, I guess, if you wanted to try add some scoring. But again, he fell off so hard. Okposo, no. Clutterbuck, no. Yamamoto, I'm good on. Yeah, I don't think I would do Yamo. Gurianov, I think I'm good on. Blake Wheeler's old and slow. You have enough old and slow. The left wingers that are available on the market are Jacob Varane is already PTOing in Washington. Mike Hoffman, I'm good. Tanner Pearson's hurt. Alexander Barabanov, I don't hate that idea. But again, what's the upside? I'd look at Dominic Kubalik, actually. I like Kubalik. Adam Ernie, Liam, you want Ernie back?
Only if he's wearing his oil field equipment.
He did look good in that. The centerman, Tyler Johnson, doesn't kill penalties, so he's not a fit. Pavelski retired. Jeff Carter retired. Michael, you can't do that. Nick Cousins, Steven Lorenz, Cogliano retired. Bonino pretty much retired. Tyler Pitlick, time for him, I guess, because I like the guy. So there you go. I said two guys I don't mind, Kubalik and Pitlick. So if one of those two, sure. But Yash, honestly, man, I don't think so. I think you want to give Lavoie a shot to make this team. I think you got enough other pieces kind of floating around. Lane Peterson should get a crack at making this team. So, I don't see any of those PTO options coming through.
No. Whatever. Do you remember that rumor of Andre Cass?
Kasha, yeah.
That just kind of came and went.
Yeah, it did. Maybe that's a PTO option. Maybe, but again, yeah.
Yeah, I could see like Kubalik maybe just because of the Chicago connection. Sometimes these PTOs too are favor to the player and agent of just like, let's just get you on the ice and give you a chance to showcase yourself again, and maybe someone will come and pick you up. It's kind of like Chris Versteeg did it a little bit. So I don't know. I don't see too many options either, but maybe if they wanted to, I could see like a Kubalik being one.
Chad, yeah, I'm here. Why were we offer sheeted? No respectful GM does that to another team unless they don't respect the other GM. Come at me. So now, again, speculative. So if you want to be speculative, how about the reports? And I'm pretty confident in them from the people I've talked to that there were 3 other teams who were ready to offer sheet Philip Broberg. What if one of those other teams would have done it, Chad? Like, again, you can sit here and just say, oh, they don't respect Stan Bowman. I mean, yeah, maybe Doug Armstrong doesn't like Stan Bowman. We speculated on that. Peter Chiarelli's in the front office. You think Peter Chiarelli's a big fan of the Edmonton Oilers? You think Ken Holland's a big fan of the Edmonton Oilers? Come at me with some sort of argument for what the Oilers did that's based in fact instead of me challenging you and you saying they don't respect Stan Bowman. Okay, sure. Stan Bowman doesn't respect Doug Armstrong. Got an extra 3rd-round pick out of him and played him. So, like, whatever, man. Okay, I'm not. It's 8:53 in the morning. I don't need to be fucking dealing with that guy.
No, I want to hear Chad. Keep Chad in there.
Keep him in. You want the chat to?
I want to see him. I want to hear him. I want to hear the counter.
So the other 3 teams don't respect Bowman either. But like, what are you even talking about? Like, okay.
At the end of the day, take the GMs out of this. St. Louis looked at the market, saw that the Oilers were literally the only team in the league had RFAs and were in cap trouble and knew exactly what they were going to do. You can only sign an offer sheet. You've played 80 games in the NHL. Philip Broberg has played 81 NHL games. Dylan Holloway has played 89. They literally were like $100,000 away from having to offer, what was it, a 2nd-round pick and a 1st-round pick and all that stuff, right? Like St. Louis did a great job of taking full advantage of the market. It has literally nothing to do with Stan Bowman, maybe a little bit. But the main premise is St. Louis have no good young defensemen coming through who can play the NHL today. And they've done this for the last 3 years, trying to find young players who can take their franchise back to that Stanley Cup standard. And they got Holloway and Broberg, and it sucks. The Oilers went out and got Podkolzin and Emberson. Does that mean they don't respect those franchises because they went and got those players? No, it's called the NHL.
I like this one. Tyler, are you filming in your dad's basement? No,
yeah.
It's the basement of the house that I own. Big dog. I get paid to talk about hockey. Go back to Facebook. Don't let your boss look over your shoulder and see you're not working now. Get out of here. What did Mulick say? Because someone said Tyler Mulick's right. Oh, yeah. St. Louis asked, and again, we talked about this post-deadline, but that was a report. Yeah, the deal that St. Louis wanted for Buchnevich was Holloway, a 1st, and Broberg, because they wanted the 3 A-level assets. And the Oilers said no. And at the time, we would have all said, yeah, that's probably an overpay. I mean, you look back at it now, And it's like, yeah, I'd rather have Buchnevich, but like, again, I'm not going to blame Jeff Jackson and Stan Bowman for Ken Holland. So, oh well, someone said we were standing for Stan Bowman, which I don't think he was smart enough to realize that was a pun. But I don't think we are either. Like, I didn't defend the Stan Bowman hiring. I said I would prefer to have hired anyone but Stan Bowman. But now that he's here, I'm not just going to sit here and automatically say every move he makes is terrible or that he's a moron. I'm going to let him be the Oilers GM and I'm going to grade him on a move by move basis. So whatever, like, I don't know. I'm not just going to sit here and be stuck in my way and be like, every other GM hates Stan Bowman. Someone said, it was Aaron. Chad's parents did a great job of naming him, which is hilarious. But anyways, I'm not just going to sit here and be like, every trade Stan Bowman makes sucks and every GM hates him. If every GM hated him, San Jose just made a deal with him. Vancouver just made a deal with him. He signed the Oilers signed 2 big free agents earlier this summer. Like, again, to sit here and want to use this whole thing as a chance to like shit on the Oilers, I'm just not doing it. All right, what else we got? Liam, you got anything else?
From Marcel, I think it is.
Shut up, Marcel.
We got to remove the emotion. You want to read it? You better read it.
Yeah. I'm reading it at 7th grade level now. We got to remove the emotion out of the offer sheet discussion. Reality is St. Louis did what was necessary, and the Oilers did what they have to do. I love that. P.S. Even if Broberg or Holloway stayed, the fans would not make it easy on them at all. Oilers fans can be rabid. Now that the dust has settled, which defenseman should we target at the deadline? Give me Adam Larson as like the simple, we know he's a rental. He should be available because I think Seattle stinks. And he's relatively cheap. And I know we can talk about would he want to come here. I think, again, him not wanting to re-sign on a 4-year deal because of everything he went through when he was here and his dad and all that and Klefbom leaving, like, totally understandable. Great. Him looking at a chance to go on a deep playoff run with a group of guys he likes in Edmonton for 4 months ahead of a contract, ahead of hitting unrestricted free agency, I think Adam Larson might be more open to it than maybe we think. And that's all. So, yeah, I'm in on that.
Yeah, I think Lawson's kind of the only one, to be honest, unless they can somehow get a guy with another year on his deal.
Yeah, which again is totally possible too. Like, you want to look 2 years down the road? Frank would kill us if he knew we were sitting here on a Tuesday morning at 9 a.m. being like, all right, who could the Oilers get 2 deadlines from now? But if they wanted to look at players who would have 1 more year left on their deal, here are those defensemen. One second, I'm going to sort it by time on ice per game last year. There we go. John Carlson in Washington, Rasmus Anderson, Jacob Trouba, Connor Murphy in Chicago is somewhat interesting. I've heard his name a little bit. Trevor Van Riemsdyk in Washington, should they want to move off from him. Erica Branson sucks. Radko Gudas isn't all that good. Nick Jensen in Ottawa maybe they move from him, but again, he's 33. Josh Manson in Colorado, but again, that takes Colorado being willing to do that, and I don't think they would. Oh, Vinny Desharnais.
I was going to say, Vinny, bring him back already.
Yeah, why not?
I actually, I think Connor Murphy is a legit option. He was there in Chicago again, and I don't know if Stan Bowman's like Ken Holland, where he likes to go back to the well and with his Detroit players, in this case, Chicago players, but maybe like Tyler Mulick point has a no movement clause to Canadian teams, but maybe Stan Bowman can talk to him like, hey, do you want to try and win a Stanley Cup, or do you want to be on the worst team in the NHL for the next 2 years?
Fair. Chad's angry because he says we're taking personal attacks at him.
Yes. Chad.
Jesus Christ, man. I love that, eh? Come on, call some people idiots on the internet, and then when they push back on you, just be like, oh, this is bullying. This has got to be bullying. This is bullying.
Mm-hmm. Bullies.
All right. Bring Larson home from Austin. Hell yeah, I love that. Okay, let's move on, Liam. We got a couple other segments that we need to get to today on the show. Just a reminder. Okay, we're going to do a quick couple of ads here. First up, Again, for the guy who says we do this from my dad's basement. We got ads on this show, big guy. First off, a message from our friends at MS Canada and A&W. Burgers to Beat MS Day is back, celebrating its 16th year on Thursday, August 22nd. We are going to be live at the Windermere A&W for this bad boy. Really excited to be teaming up with A&W to help them out with Burgers to Beat MS Day. Every teen burger purchased on that day, $2 will go to MS Canada. If you want to donate ahead of that, head to burgers2beatms.ca, order through the A&W app or through your favorite mobile delivery app. A&W rallying communities to unite for the cause and raise awareness about MS in Canada. On August 22nd, Canadians can show their support and help envision a world free of MS. Quickly, a word from our friends at A&W.
Grab a burger, beat MS on August 22nd.
Shout out to our friends at A&W. Chad, back in. He's got big main character vibes today. He says, I ain't mad. I'm stating facts. Let the record show he has not stated a single fact in any of his arguments. He has said no GMs respect Stan Bowman, which is an opinion, or it's, again, whatever. Okay, continuing along. What's trending right now? Honestly, what's trending for our friends at A&W? There's not a lot trending that isn't directly involved. Oh, inflation dropped, Liam. I know you're big into monitoring inflation.
In this economy? In Trudeau's economy. Trudeau economics. Is that what people call it? I wanted to talk about Line.
Oh, okay. Well, that was going to be in a different segment.
Oh, well, what else is trending? I watched Big Brother. I've caught up on Big Brother.
Ooh. Tucker's a beast, man. They can't beat him.
Unbeatable. Quinn, Brooklyn.
Quinn's hoop. About it. I hate Brooklyn too. She's so annoying.
She sucks. I'm a mom from Texas, and I'm going to beat everyone and win this competition. Even though I've not won an event, I'll come close to winning one.
Literally every episode, she's like, I don't care. They poked the bear. I'm going to win the next comp. And then she gets smoked. All right. That is what's trending. Oh, Stephen Ellis texted me. And we're allowed to read his text on the air. He gave us permission. He didn't, but I'm going to read it. Paul Fisher impressed me in my last viewings of him for what it's worth. He's a stay-at-home defender, 1,000%, but he's good at it. Issue is that's all he's good at. Still, I like that. That's a decent little scouting report to get. And again, they got him as a throw-in here. So it's, again, fine. Fine deal. Fine deal.
But if he is a stay-at-home defender and he has 16 points in 32 games, he's not bad. It's not bad.
I like this one. Come at me. Whoa. Stop coming at me.
Subscribe. Oh, you already did.
Yep. Oh, yeah. You have to subscribe to comment. Hell yeah. Tucker's the best thing about Big Brother in a while, winning and causing shit. He's so good. He's just exactly what the show of Big Brother should be. Jeez, Chad, there's no need to comment stuff like this, buddy. Come on. We're not going there. All right, let's continue along. Let's go around the league for our friends at Spring Financial. We've been streaming for over an hour, which, again, we probably could have kept it shorter, but we're having some fun. It's brought to you by our friends at Spring Financial. Unexpected expenses always show up, and guess what? You can now borrow money right from your phone for those unexpected expenses. With Spring Financial, they offer online personal loans from $500 up to $35,000 with no stress and no branch visits ever. Join thousands of happy Canadian customers who've made them Canada's top rated lender. Apply in 3 minutes. springfinancial.ca/ONE. That's springfinancial.ca/ONE. Quickly, a message from our friends at Spring Financial. Look for the
Looking for the fastest personal loan in Canada? Well, look no further. Spring Financial offers fully online personal loans with zero stress and no need for branch visits. But don't take our word for it.
Thank you.
Thank you, Spring Financial.
Thank you very much.
Spring Financial is the best.
Apply today at springfinancial.ca.
I just don't know. I can't tell what it is. Shout out to Spring
They
Financial.
real ears or cat ears?
So I do think the trade yesterday, and again, one of the things we kind of heard here, Liam, was they traded someone with first round pedigree, and they got a second and third round pick back for these guys. Patrick Laine was taken second overall in his draft. He scored 40 goals once. He scored at a 40-goal pace a couple of times in his career. The Columbus Blue Jackets had to attach a second-round pick to Patrick Laine just to get the just to get a third pairing defenseman back. So it's Laine in a second, his full $8.5 million cap hit, going to Montreal in exchange for Jordan Harris, a third pairing and 24-ish-year-old defenseman right around there. So, what do you think? What do you make of the deal? You said you wanted to talk a little Laine. Let's go.
Well, I think Montreal got the player with the most upside, so I would say they win the trade. We'll kind of see what happens. Like, they really have nothing to lose these next 2 years, right? A lot of people are obviously talking about the contract and just like what Laine's done the last couple of years. Obviously, he's been away from the game for a little bit. But Montreal also have guys like Josh Anderson and Brendan Gallagher on contract. So clearly they have no interest in trying to win games. And Patrick Laine is only 26. Sometimes it's hard to believe he's been in the league for 8 years now. But he's 26 years old. Like, he's got a lot of games still ahead of him. And hopefully he can kind of get back. And in his press conference yesterday, he's like, I don't want to come back and be like a 20, 30 goal guy. I want to get back to being a 40, 50 goal guy. And if you can get anywhere close to, he said 40. If you can get close to 30, then I think Montreal is well on their way.
Yeah. This one from Mulek. Ceci had more value than Laine. And that is actually insane when you look at it that way, that Cody Ceci cost less to get out of than Laine. And again, like, we're laughing about it. It was an $8.5 million cap hit. That does change things a bit. Laine's been banged up a lot as well. Production's fallen off over the last couple of years. But I still like this gamble from Montreal. Like, you talked about some of the guys they have on their roster. Are they trying to win? They're certainly trying to be more competitive. They recognize the window that they're in right now isn't a Stanley Cup window. They're trying to build towards that. But I look at it like this. You're going to bring in Patrick Laine. One, that excites your fan base. You know who loves the Montreal Canadiens? Our boy Red from Star Mechanical. It goes Oilers, and he likes the Habs almost as much as he likes the Oilers. And he was texting me yesterday. Again, Habs fan, he's excited. He's like, hey, I love this work. Love what my GM's doing. So getting Laine, again, when you have the cap space, and the Habs have the cap space, gets your fan base excited. Heading into a year, there's nothing wrong with that. When you know you're not going to be a playoff team, building up some goodwill with your fan base is a solid thing to do. Yeah. Two, if Laine is healthy and in a better headspace, and, he went to the player assistance program, I commend him for putting his mental health first when he was with Columbus and being like, I can't take this anymore. I need a few months off. But if he's back and he's ready to go the way he was early in his career, you found yourself a 35 to 40 goal scorer in Patrick Laine, and you got a second-round pick to take this gamble. It's not like you took it for free. And who knows, next trade deadline, if you're Montreal and you're not competitive, and Laine is coming off a 35-goal season and is having another good year, and he's been healthy for 18 months, you retain half, you're getting a first-round pick plus for Patrick Laine at the deadline, without a doubt. And if it doesn't work, then these next 2 years, you're not trying to win a cup. You got a second-round pick to take it. You excited your fan base, and it was a risk worth taking because of that. So I don't know. I like all that. I like the move from Montreal. For Columbus, you had to get rid of him. So just do it.
Yeah, I think Columbus just needs some fresh faces, to be honest. I'm not saying Laine was a problem by any means, but you just got to change the culture a little bit. Also, the last time Montreal went out and got a former first-round player and turned him into a bit of a reclamation project. His name was Sean Monahan. They got a first-round pick for him.
Yeah.
It's not bad. There's some comments I want to read to Tyler if we got a little bit.
This one? Can I read this one from Chad? Yeah. Clearly, Oilers Nation is butthurt because I proved a point they can't argue. Anyways, I have work to do. Bye. So 15-minute break was up.
He just started.
Yeah. But I like how he goes, I proved a point they can't argue. You made up a point and then left. It's not quite exactly how debating things goes, but you do you, dog. Anyways, what did you want to read?
Okay, so there's a few. They're all from Facebook. They're better ones this time. Gino said, hi, guys. What's the Oilers' next move? I don't think they have a next move, to be honest. I think they're probably going to wait now till camp and then maybe PTO guy.
Yeah, I think the next move is likely a PTO of some sort. And yeah, if you're waiting for another big trade to drop, I don't think you should be holding your breath on that. That's going to happen till the deadline. So yeah.
Chad's back.
No, he had work to do.
No, he's back.
Oh, really?
Sorry, a couple more. Stay away from Chad now.
Yeah.
Jeff, any chance the others go for a revenge or an offshoot down the road? Jake Neighbors? I don't think so. I don't think they can afford him. Oh, sorry. It's not that the Oilers can afford him. St. Louis have too much money to be able to afford whatever the Oilers offer Jake Neighbors.
J-Rock is asking us to roast him. No, we're not doing that. I do like when we do these kinds of shows. Like, it's not at the normal time. We're going live for breaking news. So, like random people are going to tune in. And like, it's just people who don't understand anything about what we kind of do here. Someone was, I think, making fun of, they might have been making fun of me. My hair's a little greasy today too, but they said one of us looks greasy.
Oh, it's probably me. And I am.
Okay. Around the league, I don't know if there's really. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
No, just let's talk about it. Do I look greasy today? Yeah. I had to get up at 7. I walked my dog. I walked him out the back gate. I came out the front. I left the back gate open. I had to chase him over the hill. That's why I was 3 minutes late for the damn show today.
3 minutes.
I had to chase a dog in the morning. So yeah, I give gel in my hair. I had a shower. I usually do the show at noon. God damn it!
Today's supposed to be an off day for us. We aren't supposed to be doing a show today. But that's fine. It's fun to be here with the people, and a lot of people tuning in today, so we appreciate it. If you're a first-time watcher, and even if your name's Chad, hit the subscribe button. You can find the show wherever you get your podcasts from. We do this bad boy every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday during the off season, except for this week where we just made up a few random days. And during the regular season, we are here every single day at noon Mountain Time for an hour, and next year could be an hour and a half of Oilers talk. So giddy up on that. Also, people were wondering why you're at the studio and I'm at home. You need to get your home studio set up.
I'm moving house.
So when you move houses, we have given you all the resources necessary to have a home studio. You just got to do it.
That is completely incorrect. This laptop computer turns off all the time. That is the reason I don't use laptops.
The company said they'll give you a new laptop,
which would take weeks. I don't have time for that.
But if you start that clock now, by the time next season starts, you can do shows from home.
But I only live 10 minutes away.
You're making your bed.
I'm fine with it. I had a nice drive in this morning. I drove behind my friend, Brennan.
Oh, really? Like total coincidence? He just happened to be there?
Total coincidence. He called me. He's like, I saw the duct tape on your car. It was me.
All right, Max is in. The Oilers are the worst managed team in the NHL. You wait till we get this Draisaitl deal. I know Dan on Oilers Nation Radio, which is another show of ours you can tune into every week, every Friday. He talked about how he thinks maybe the Draisaitl extension comes like right after this as a way to like get the fan base talking about something else. I still think we're waiting until September for the Draisaitl deal.
What? He's not in Canada.
That too.
The biggest layer to all of this is he's not here. Chad's back.
Bro, get to work.
I'm calling in.
Have to get back to work, Chad.
Thanks for subscribing. Yeah, I think Draisaitl will just be. My prediction was right before training camp, first day.
That's fair. I think that's totally fair.
And do you know what? Too, there's just some people were talking about how trading CC is going to affect Draisaitl. That cannot be the case, because unless Draisaitl is going to San Jose, then he will just not play with Cody Cedi anyway. Like, that cannot be an argument. Also, like, friendships are great. Do you not think, like, if friendships are so important in all of this, then nobody would ever leave their team? Everyone would be on the same team every single season. Doesn't make sense.
Yeah, I mean, it's a business at the end of the day. Grava's back in. He's been commenting smart stuff today. We like him. Personally, I like the moves. If Vasily Podkolzin can come in and learn from a guy like Janmark, sometimes turning into a fast-skating defensive forward, keeps a guy earning NHL paychecks. And that too, like, so here's the other, if we want, because we never really went super in-depth on the Podkolzin thing outside of, I guess, talking to Quads yesterday, but sometimes with a guy like that, where you're a high pick with the team that drafted you, you're pigeonholed into certain expectations, right? Like if Vasily Podkolzin for the next 3 years with the Vancouver Canucks, so a world where they don't trade him for the next 3 years, he is a third line winger who learns how to kill penalties and scores 12 goals a year. What are Canucks fans going to say about Vasily Podkolzin? They're going to say he's a bust. Oh my God, this guy went 10th overall and all he does is score 12 goals a season and kill penalties. He's useless. our expectations of Vasily Podkolzin, or at least mine, I shouldn't speak for everyone, I guess. I really shouldn't, considering how the chat's going today. But my expectations of Podkolzin, if he can come in, play physical like he does, learn to kill penalties, which Quads told us there's room for him to learn that, and he did it in Russia. And if he can score you 12 goals a season, if he checks those 3 boxes, this is a great trade, and he's $1 million for the next 2 years. So if he's a physical, penalty-killing, third-line winger who scores at a somewhat decent clip for you, you're thrilled with this trade. And again, like the expectations, and sometimes guys need to lose the burden of those expectations. Like, again, I just outlined like how Canucks fans would feel about him. That would weigh on a guy, but now he's coming to Edmonton and it's a totally fresh start for him. So is he magically a 25 goal scorer next year who looks like a 10th overall pick? No. But is he a serviceable NHLer who comes in and actually fills a nice hole for you and can maybe even be what Warren Fogle scored 20 goals last year, so not quite, but can he fill that role to an extent? I think there's potential for that.
Yeah, I agree. And it's like you said it earlier, like once you kind of put on the jersey, like your draft stock goes out the window to an extent. Like at first, yes, everyone has those expectations, but especially when you move to a different team. Like Zach Kassian was the 13th overall pick in 2010. He came into the Oilers, did a really good job as a bottom 6 player, got overpaid, sure, but like in the grand scheme of things, he was good. We've talked about Adam Lawson a ton on this show. He was the 4th overall pick in his draft class. He is not a 4th overall pick player from what you would expect. He's a great career. Don't get me wrong. Ryan Strome, when he came here, he was perfectly fine. 5th overall pick. Like you just kind of need these guys to come in and just play the role. And I think the pressure, like you said, of like being in a new market, the expectations are so different. Like we're all coming in here and hoping he can fill a void that Dylan Holloway left. Well, Dylan Holloway had 9 points last season, forked really hard, and brought like a ton of energy to the game. If Podkolzin can do that, then the floor is pretty low for him to get on.
Exactly. This one from Dante in the Facebook. Tell me, why do we still have Campbell and have not bought him out yet?
Oh, he's Dante.
Here's what I mean. Some people don't watch the show.
I'll tell him. The Oilers did buy him out in June.
Yeah.
He's been gone for a while, but I you know what? I appreciate that you've been enjoying your summer, Dante.
All right. Jesus, chat is so rude. God damn. Remember when he was like, you guys need to stop with the personal attacks, and then he does stuff like this? What a dweeb.
Is said Jack Campbell signed with the Detroit Red Wings.
His home state team. He's a Michigan boy.
That is true. Former 10th overall pick, Jack Campbell.
Lance makes me laugh. Okay, let's wrap up, Liam, with just very, very quickly another sports report. It's brought to you by our friends over at Bet365. Check them out online, Bet365. Download the app. Use the promo code OILYBONUS to get in on a huge range of markets. Whatever the sport, whatever the moment, it is never ordinary at Bet365. Download the app today. Use the promo code OILYBONUS. All right, what do we got going on? The Blue Jays back in action tonight, sadly, taking on the Cincinnati Reds. Our boy Bag Milk was in attendance last night and got to see Vladdy hit his 26th home run of the season, and I was jealous of Bag Milk for seeing that, but then I was not jealous when the Blue Jays blew their lead and lost to the Cincinnati Reds. Just taking a peek here. The Jays are favorites once again because they have Jose Barrios on the bump tonight. He's coming off a really good start last week as well, so maybe we'll take a peek at his strikeout prop, and I'll probably look at Javier Assad's strikeout prop for the Cubbies today as well. It's 4.5. I like that. I like that number. He's taking on the Tigers. So there's a couple of good. Cole Ragans is on the bump today for Kansas City. I might look at his strikeouts too. 6.5. Too high. But a couple good strikeout props today over on Bet365. Liam, any footy action on that we should know about today?
Yeah, there's some Champions League games today. I'm just trying to take a quick peek at what's going on. There's so those of you who don't know, you have to qualify to get into the Champions League if you're in you're finishing a certain spot in your domestic league. So there's some games. Jonathan David is either playing with Lille. He's playing today or tomorrow. They play today against Slava Prague, -118 on the money line. I would go with that. They're at home.
All right, there you go. A little betting advice from our boy Liam. We got a question in the chat. Do the Oilers have any dead money on the books besides Campbell? From James. Yes, James. James Neal is still on the books for one more year, but that does come off at the end of the season. So this season they have $3 million in dead cap space. Next year it goes down to 2.1 with Neal off the books, and Campbell's buyout actually becomes more expensive each of the next 2 years before going back down in the fourth and final year. So 4 more years of dead money on Campbell, 1 more year of dead money on Neal. Cole, Tyler, do you want Ross Atkins fired? Yes. I don't think you can trust him to come out of this little mess he's created. So yeah, no. Jad, since Holloway left, Janmark is my new breakout player in 24-25. I don't know if I'd call Janmark a breakout guy. He's pretty veteran, but I will say one guy who I think our expectations are a little bit too low of. I think Connor Brown could have himself a nice season next year, Liam. I'm high on what Connor Brown can maybe do. We saw him finally get comfortable. You and I had a chance to chat with him one-on-one at the Stanley Cup final, and we were kind of like, hey, like, you got better as the year went on, kind of what clicked. And he talked about how, like, and I'm paraphrasing a bit here, but the gist of what he was telling us was his hands and feet, because he missed a full year. He was like, his hands and feet weren't speaking the same language. It took him until the deadline to get comfortable. And what we saw from the deadline on, he said they brought in some players who he's familiar with. He felt like he started to fit in more, and then he started to play really good. It took him a long time, and obviously he would admit this and did admit this, and I think the Oilers would admit this, a lot longer to get comfortable than they thought he would with the NHL game. But once he got there, he was a good player for them, and he was good in the back half of the playoffs once he actually started to play. So I'm higher on him than a lot of people.
Yeah, I think we're going to be happy with Connor Brown this season. And, you know, you talk about get that cap. Well, his bonus is also dead cap on the Bucks, technically, isn't it, too? So, yeah, I think Connor Brown will take the next step. What is he now, 29?
Yes.
Next step at 29. There's a question here, actually, from earlier on, from Dragonfly Jones 93.
Sick name.
Watching from Dallas. If you could have kept one player between Broberg and Holloway, who would you have kept, Tyler?
Probably Holloway, because the risk is lower, just in the sense of like, if you get into cap trouble next year, I'd rather only be $2.2 million in cap trouble or $2.3 million in cap trouble than 4.5. Like Holloway, and we talked about this, Holloway is more likely to hit the level of his cap it next year than Broberg is. Broberg being a $4.5 million defenseman is a bit of a reach. Holloway, not as much.
Yeah, Holloway would have made my pick too, I think, with the idea of the possibility of moving Evander Kane from March 1st onwards too. Having Holloway fill that role. Jeff Skinner possibly going as well at the end of the next season, assuming that happens as well. You have Holloway that can kind of slide into your top 6. But hey, now you have maybe Savoy, Lavoie, someone on those lines.
Totally. Any chance the Oilers get another Erie Otter? I don't know.
Oh,
you got one?
No, I was just curious about the question. Oh yeah, Travis Dermott. Wasn't he in Erie Otter?
He actually might have been. That's a good question. You double check that, and then we're gonna wrap up the show.
He was in Erie Otter.
Yeah, give me Travis Dermott. All right.
Frost.
Okay, well, that was a good 83 minutes of live streaming, Liam. Up earlier than we usually are. Hello.
I know. I'm usually getting up at this time.
But shout out to the YouTube chat. You guys were great. Bunch you in there today. It's always nice to have stuff like this in the off season and get to see all the usual suspects in the chat. We're not signing Cahoon or Reader. I'm down for Andre Kasha, but I don't think he's German. So sorry, Nils. Shout out to Oilers Nation Germany, by the way. OilersNation.de. You know what I'm saying? We're always asking Tyler and Liam questions, but never ask them if they have any questions for us. Tyler Mulick, good work, fellas. When are you doing a full 8-hour stream? I think the only way we could do that, Liam, is if we're streaming ourselves playing a video game.
We could do, like, if we were ever to do like a charity stream, we could do that.
That'd be fun.
We could mix in. What we could do would be like watch old Oilers games. That'd be a good way to pass some time.
Okay. Final buzzer. Now return to your regularly scheduled summer. Yes. Ryan asked, is there a show tomorrow? No show tomorrow, but we are going to do a show Thursday live from A&W for Burgers to Beat MS Day. And then Friday, we're up in the air. If there's news, we might do one, but we're definitely going to have a show again on Thursday. And then next week, we'll be back to our usual Monday, Wednesday, Friday. We'll keep that rhythm going until October when it is time to start seriously talking about hockey. So thanks to everyone who tuned in today. Greta Bar YEG YouTube chat, you were excellent. Hope you all enjoy the rest of your Tuesday. Offer sheet drama is over. So on Thursday, we'll be giving you our projected lineup for the season and more. I don't know which A&W it is in Windermere, but it's one of the two. I'll figure it out, probably put it on Twitter as well. So enjoy your Tuesday, everybody. We'll be back with you on Thursday. Oil up.
Thank you for watching Oilers Nation Every Day. Hit the subscribe button to never miss a show. And for more, visit OilersNation.com.